Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I am Andrew Musgrove, joined as usual by John Gibson for this week's match preview. Newcastle welcome Brentford to St James as part of the first men's game after the Carabao Cup victory. And of course, it was the parade over the weekend. And John, that is where we'll start. What did you make of it? So many great pictures and videos doing the rounds. And every time you look at them, you'll see something new. It just, for me, took my breath away. How about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. You're correct. Every time you look at the footage, you see something that it escaped your attention. I mean, it was both wonderful and not surprising because this is typical Newcastle United fans, isn't it? But to have 150,000 on the streets and another 150,000 at the town moor is quite phenomenal. That there's that amount of people willing to turn out on a Saturday and just bask in everything that's black and white. Quite incredible. And you know what? I'm just about exhausted. I'm just about ready to go and lie down in a darkened room for 3 days. Um, it's been such an elongated period of joy and wall to wall sunshine. Quite amazing and quite unusual because normally there isn't. Normally, you win the cup, you bring it home 48 hours later or whatever, everybody goes crackers and you go off on your summer holidays. This has been a fortnight's jolly. I've almost forgotten what playing rank and file football is all about. All I can see is Wembley, and that seems an eternity ago, and at the same time yesterday. It's it's quite incredible, and I don't know if I want to come down to earth or not. I mean, everything is going so swimmingly that should we play again and risk spoiling it all, or should we just drift into the summer on this pink cloud of euphoria? I mean, we've been high as a kite for a fortnight, but it has come to the time when we've got to come away from dreamland into reality because incredibly, and it only happens with the League Cup, incredibly, there's still a quarter of a season to play or whatever, 10 games. Which is a fair old chunk of a season, 10 games to go. That is very unusual to be celebrating a trophy win because that's normally the end of a season. Very unusual. And there's been the interesting thing is going to be the reaction of each individual player in terms of there's so much to consider, isn't there? Emotional impact, traveling. I mean, some of the boys have been all the way over to Brazil, others to Dubai. How fit are they? How sharp are they? How drained are they? Because we're all drained and we don't play, but we're drained because of the emotion. And it's going to be interesting to see how each individual comes handles this and comes down to earth on Wednesday night.
Now, look, we know how great of a manager Eddie Howe is. He's finally ended the trophy drought after all those years, but we're going to see just how good of a coach he is because you mentioned there, John, how are the players going to be impacted after the last fortnight? I don't know about you. It feels like I've ran a marathon 10 times over. I'm quite tired. I imagine the players might be feeling that, if not more, as well. And what we're going to really get to see from Eddie Howe, we know tactics, we know attacking football, we know all of that. But this is a brand new challenge for him. How does he make sure that there's a positive impact and not a negative impact from the cup final? Because it's not just 10 games, is it, John, to play? It's Champions League football for next season.
Oh, I mean, there's a huge amount rolling on this. I mean, it's a 10-match mini season, if you like, because are we going to be in the European Conference? Well, yes, bottom line, yes. Are we going to be in the Europa's League or are we going to be in the Champions League? And that will be decided over the next 10 games. Now, the difficulty for Eddie is that everyone's different. You know, we tend to forget that, oh, a lot of people do, these are young men. I mean, and young men with the exuberance of youth and the stupidity of youth, and I say that having gone through all of that myself, and no doubt you can say the same thing. When you're young, the whole world seems in front of you, and it is. But you're going to have a different reaction. I mean, that can be a different reaction from emotional people like Bruno and maybe Joe Linton. I mean, if you're going to say you want people with a steady head on Wednesday night, that is Eddie himself because he's straight bat and pad and he's one dimensional. And I mean, this all is a plus, and he will be focused. And he put a alcohol ban and he'll be focused. Trips is exactly the same sort of guy. He'll be focused. Hopefully, people like Dan Burn, you look at Tenali and he seems level headed and he'll be focused. And then there's the jumping jack flashes, isn't there? And that, the fun guys that's had a wonderful time, and you wonder how much the emotions taken out of Bruno because he has been like the Duracell bully, hasn't he? And I don't mean on the field. I mean, he's been here, there, and everywhere. I mean, hugging the microphone, being very irreverent on the town moor, etc., love for it. But he must be drained. You can imagine um, Big Joe being drained. Now, I would think that Isaac is a cool Swede, isn't he? And I mean, while he celebrated on the coach, he didn't look extreme. You can imagine it'll be different. It always has been different. I mean, in my time, when you look at the reaction of the ultra pros, and then you look at the reaction of a couple of superstars, and you can't get a bigger superstar in Gaza, but he lived life on a pogo stick. He was either high up a height or down exhausted. It's going to be it's going to be a matter of Eddie individually assessing and watching them closely in training now that they're back in training to see who is drained, who is because if you are drained and then you're running against a fresh Brentford side, then you've got a problem on your hands. So it's going to be interesting. I don't begrudge any one of the players for the wonderful joy they have had over the last fortnight because they've given us the fortnight that has been utopia, and they give us that. So I don't begrudge them one bit of celebration, but I wonder how it's going to turn out on Wednesday night in terms of legs.
Yeah, well, hopefully they've got a bit of energy about them and they can kickstart this mini season with a victory. I think you mentioned there the likes of Trippier and Bruno, and I think what's really important in that squad is that we've got leaders. Had Newcastle United won a couple of years ago against Manchester United and would be asking the same questions about, whether they'll be up, will they be down, I would have been slightly more concerned because really Trippier was the only real leader. In those couple of years, we've seen Bruno grow into this leader. Dan Burns really found his feet in that leadership group as well. And I think Newcastle United have got enough strong characters in today's squad to make sure the message is, look, we've enjoyed the last fortnight. Them scenes on Saturday, brilliant, but we've got so much to play for. We want them scenes year in, year out. We want to see 10,000 fans in Dortmund next whenever September, October time. We want that. Let's go out and get it. So I think the characters they've got, John, in the dressing room will be enough to make sure the message is, let's get back and let's get back to winning ways.
Oh, I think the will be there, Andrew. It's whether the body's capable of doing it. I think the will to do it will be there, the determination. No one would doubt how much Bruno's becoming a doctor. I'm using him purely as an example because he is the skipper and he is an emotional guy. How much he's become a doctor Geordie and how much he loves a Geordie. He will 100% want to go out there. Is there enough in the tank though for the adrenaline to keep him going? I mean, I hope so, and I'm not being over dramatic. It's bound to be. There's young men have partied and enjoyed themselves with all our blessing, and we've got to see that they're up again and ready to go again. I mean, mentally they'll want it. They'll definitely want it, and if they get anything like the performance that they can produce, then we will be okay. And I'm hoping that adrenaline will play a very, very significant part on Wednesday night because while it's now back to business, Andrew, it's also, we cannot deny, an emotional situation on Wednesday night because they're coming out at St. James's Park to play at the Cathedral on the Hill for the first time since the wonder of Wembley. And the first time 50,000 crowd are going to actually be willing them to go about their business as opposed to just basking in it as it was on Saturday. So it is going to be emotional again, and that is good because that can give that adrenaline give you that extra 5, 10, 15% in your legs that really isn't there by nature. So that is a plus, and I think that will play a significant part. And I think from Eddie's point of view, I mean, the tactics, as you've said, or tactics, etc., etc., etc. I don't think there's honestly, with respect to everybody at St James's Park, in necessary for Eddie to tell them what these 10 games mean. I think it's how much the body is willing to respond to the mind.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I'm hopeful though that they will have enough energy in the legs, and obviously some of them went away to international on international duty, which means they would have to have been focused for that. I think that's a good thing. I know they've had the travel, some of them like Bruno and Joe Linton, but I think the fact that they've had to kind of get straight back into that mindset of competitive football will be a good thing. And I just think the scenes that they saw on Saturday will just drive them on to really kick on in what remains of the season. But you are right about Wednesday. It's going to be emotional. The cup will probably be on parade again as they come out. There might be, Brentford standing there applauding them as well. But it's just going to be hopefully a really good atmosphere. It sets the tone against what will be a very difficult Brentford side. I mean, both sides, John, they've won 3 of their last 6. Both sides won their last game before the break from the Premier League. Brentford are 11th on 41 points. Newcastle are 6th on 47. So I'm not too much distance between the two. But Brentford, one of those teams that Newcastle have a decent record against, but you can never write them off because they've got really talented players and at least 2, John, that I would love to see in the black and white of Newcastle.
Oh, absolutely. They are a good side. They're an unusual side. I mean, it's only about a year ago or something. Brentford were all about Brentford at home, weren't they? And on the road, they were very poor. And it was Brentford at home that tucked up everybody. Now it's the exact opposite way around. They have won the last 5 away games on the bounce. Now, 2 of them are against the easy beats of the Premier League, which is Southampton and Leicester. But they've also won at West Ham, Palace, and Bournemouth, which is not a mean feat. And they are good away from home now, where they used to be good at home. We've played them twice this season. We got tucked up there, but we took them up here on the way to Wembley in the Carabao Cup. And I know which of those 2 results I want to see repeated on Wednesday. Of course, they're going to be difficult. Of course, they're going to be fresh. Of course, they'll think they can take advantage of Newcastle's monumental party and perhaps being as much mentally tired as physically tired. They'll want to take advantage of that. They'll want to be party poopers. They're dangerous enough. But at the same time, if Newcastle carry the emotion of uh, the last fortnight into a last hurrah, if you like, the fans welcoming them home on the pitch, and then we are into an ordinary, if that's possible ever again, into a season. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating how it works out. If we produce 3/5 of what we produced at Wembley, we win. I mean, in terms of performance, we win because that was stupendous. I mean, we can't expect that for 10 successive games, and because that would take some doing. Because that was the ultimate. I thought, looking back at it, Andrew, I thought that was the ultimate team performance. Wembley for 90 minutes. And how often have we said this season up till now, Newcastle played great for a quarter of an hour, for half an hour, for one half of a game, but never really for 90 minutes. That was the ultimate performance, Wembley.
Oh, most certainly. And we just have to hope that it wasn't the occasion that they were playing up to, and it can actually become, the next 10 games where we see that. Of course, as you said there, we can't wish for that, or we can wish for it, but you probably won't see it for the next 10 games. But
No,
I think
no,
this season, John, has been a season of inconsistency when it comes to
totally.
Newcastle in the Premier League. And they've set the bar with that performance against Liverpool in the Cup. And it will partly have been down to what was on the line. But as we said there, the Champions League is on the line here. and hopefully what we saw at Wembley can come into these final 10 games and get Newcastle United over the line. I mentioned there two names, well, two players that I'd like to see at Newcastle United. And I feel bad doing this because I have a grump when I see Sky Sports saying Liverpool wants Isak, and I get a little bit of a grump about that. So I do feel bad about mentioning the players I'd like to take from other teams, but I'm going to do it anyway. Wissa, I think, fantastic up front, John. I think he'd be brilliant competition for Alexander Isak. But it's all about Brian Mbeumo, isn't it, on the right? And if you're Tino
Yeah.
Livramento, filling in at left back for Lewis Hall, you've gone up against Jared Bowen, done a good job. You've gone up against Mo Salah, done a fantastic job. And now you're going to go up against Brian Mbeumo. I mean, those are arguably the three best right midfielders in the league. He's kept two of them quiet. Let's hope we can do it again on Wednesday.
Yes, this boy is a top player. But I mean, Livramento wanting to get himself re-established in the England team, not the squad, because a new manager. He's on his wrong side, but nobody told him that in the cup final, and he looked like a ready-made left back in that particular game. And he is a Rolls Royce of a player. He's a wonderful player. And it's amazing with Brentford, isn't it? Because we've always said, if you have a good centre forward, don't get rid. Don't get rid of Isak, even if you get £200 million, because you could get £500 million. But who are you going to buy? It's guaranteed to get you 20 odd goals a season in the Premier League alone, which is what Isak does. But amazingly, Brentford got rid of Ivan Toney, who was their great goal scorer, and then produced this guy playing centre forward and doing a terrific job. I don't think we'd ever get both out of Brentford. So I would take the outside right because I think that's more important to us.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Maybe that's one to revisit in the summer. You mentioned there Livramento in England, and he was one of those unfortunate to be cut from the squad for the second game.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to know how he's feeling about that. Does that serve as some added motivation, as you say, to re-establish himself, to say to Thomas Tuchel, you were wrong, to do that, or does he sit there and kind of feel sorry for himself and maybe go into his shell a little bit?
Well, you could do either, but I would suspect that he got to bear in mind that Eddie Howe was waiting for him in Newcastle to come back from international duty with the jump leads out to plug him in and get him going again. And Eddie's terrific at that. And this is a young man early in his career. I would hope and I would expect that he would see this as a challenge and something that I can raise to very easily. I mean, honestly, the future of England's more Livramento than it is Kyle Walker, isn't it? And yet he played Kyle Walker. I mean, Kyle Walker is built purely on speed, which is rapidly going at this stage of his career and lifestyle. And I would think Livramento is. I was surprised at Livramento getting cut and perhaps not getting in ahead of Kyle Walker. But hey, that's another business. I mean, he didn't start Anthony Gordon in the first game. Unfortunately, he brought him on because he then got injured. But he didn't start Anthony Gordon in the first game, and he's nailed on outside left, Newcastle's top outside left. Rashford's now been reborn, and so that's a challenge to Gordon with what he's done at Villa and having got his first goals in for Villa in the FA Cup. And then out of the blue, two Newcastle players we think are relatively established with England, Livramento and Gordon, new managers, suddenly they're not starting. And Dan Burn, who's got nowhere near the England squad's not only picked in it, but starts. And so a new manager brings different things. It's quite amazing. And we've got to bear in mind there's Lewis Hall to come back next season into the England equation. But I would like to think it will be a lift for Livramento, and he would be a young man that says, "Hey, I can take chances." He's come back magnificently from a bad injury at his previous club and fought back from that and become the player he is. So that indicates to me he takes challenges.
Yeah, certainly. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he reacts to that snub, if you want to call it that, from the England manager. Just a reminder, ladies and gents, that this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Hit the link in your podcast description box to get an exclusive offer on your NordVPN plan. You can protect yourself across 10 devices and you support the podcast at the same time. It costs as little as £2.33. So do get on board and sign up. John, you mentioned there Dan Burn. I mean, if one man is going to be on a high after the last fortnight, it's going to be him.
He's on a high to start with. It's 6'7", but he must be as high as Gray's Monument at the moment. I mean, it's been an incredible time for him, and it does show that everything comes to he who waits, because it's late in his career. He's become a top Premier League player, a Wembley hero, and an England international, all late in his career, all after being 30. And I mean, he must honestly pinch himself and say, anything is possible when you look at what's happened to Dan Burn. And of course, that's what Jacob Murphy's thinking now. Jacob Murphy's thinking, I can become an England international. If Dan did, I can follow the same path. And you can understand, he gives hopes to all sorts of people with what has happened to him. And yeah, he's as high as a kite anyway at 6'7", but he's got to sort of come down to earth like the rest of us and get on with it. But you've always got the feeling with Dan that he's capable of doing that. If you're looking at people that will be there and right up for it on Wednesday, you would put Dan Burn in there, you would put Isaac in there, you would put Trips in there, you put the manager in there as automatic, and then you would look at the others and see where they fall into the jigsaw.
And you mentioned as well Anthony Gordon. He's obviously suspended for this game. We also wait to see how his injury heals up. But luckily for him, he's got this next week to recover from that and be back the game after. But Harvey Barnes, I think this is a massive game for him, John. I thought he was good against West Ham. I thought he was excellent against Liverpool. I watched back the highlights for the first time actually on Friday night. And the first half, he was absolutely everywhere. He was a real threat, just trying to go at them. In the second half as well, I thought he was good. So I know a lot of people will automatically just say Gordon comes back into that side when his suspension is over. But, I'm not too sure. I think Harvey Barnes on Wednesday can really lay down a marker and give Eddie Howe something to think about. If you're talking ability-wise, then, yeah, Gordon is better than Barnes because he's got more in his locker. Barnes, we know what he does, runs down the flank, cuts inside and hits one. But we're talking about end product. We're talking about goals. Yeah, I think Gordon scored 6 this season in the Premier League and Barnes got 5. So there's not too much between them there. I think this is a massive chance for Barnes to really say to Gordon, look, you're back, but I'm not giving up this space easily.
It is a great chance, but he will give up the space because Gordon's better than him, and Gordon will come back in as soon as he's fit and available. Having said that, there's both wings. I take the point you're making, Andrew, and it's absolutely right. And from his point of view, he's got to think like that because there's 2 wing positions up for grabs. Jacob Murphy's not automatic unless he keeps playing well. And Gordon can switch across, or Barnes can switch across to the right side. So there's 3 players for 2 positions in the running to the end of the season, if you like, because Barnes will not only has he got the possibility of keeping Gordon out, but he's got the possibility of replacing um, uh, Murphy or uh,
Switch it
Gordon
around,
goes
yeah,
across.
Gordon on the right,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I mean, I think the people in the driving seat, because Eddie always sees the overall picture and not just the latest picture. I think the positions of Murphy and Gordon's to lose. But but it is a big game for Bonds, you're right. And why is it? Because for all his talent, he has not consistently made a big impression at Newcastle United since he come for 37 million. Whatever we say, you can look at his goals, he's come. That's a big asset he's got. He can come on and pick a goal out of nowhere. But If you look at his 90-minute performances since he come to Newcastle, I'm not talking about Liverpool. Nobody had a bad game against Liverpool. That was a wonderful thing. Everybody was a 10. Nobody had a bad game. But if you look at it, Barnes, there's more to come from Barnes. In that, there has to be. He has not been consistently a £37 million winger since he came to Newcastle. So it's a big game for him because he showed us something at Wembley, but he hasn't shown us consistency. And that's what we want to see.
Yeah, and I think the fact that most people, as I said, would automatically put Gordon back in, I think Barnes will be aware of that. That'll be playing on his mind. And he's just got to seize the opportunity that he's been presented. I think he's done cracking since he's come in and replaced Gordon after that silly suspension he picked up against Brighton. And it's like, now or never, isn't it? This is your moment to really lay down a challenge for that spot. And you can keep it, go and score goals and help Newcastle United get to the Champions League. But what a wonderful kind of dilemma for Eddie Howe to have. If Barnes can keep this good form that he's had up in the last couple of games, and then you've got Gordon coming back as well. I mean, those are the dilemmas that you want in an attacking
Oh,
position. So it's going to be so interesting to see what happens, not just on Wednesday, but going forward as well.
sure, sure. Um, Barnes needs to show why Newcastle signed him, and he needs to show it consistently, and he needs to impact on a game. He impacts with his goals, but does he impact enough, regularly enough, over an hour and a half? And that's what we want to see from him. And of course, Eddie'll be desperate to see that. He set up the signing in the first place, and he needs as many people going uh, hell for leather in the last 10 games as possible in Bonds, regardless of Gordon coming back after this game, if he's fit, and maybe he's not. You look at perhaps Murphy could have a dip. You look right across the line. We need everybody because 10 matches is a good old run in. And Barnes has the chance. He's got the medal on the chest, and it's on his chest deservedly because he started at Wembley and was part of a great. He wasn't the sort of 89th minute sub or something, or gets the medal just because he's part of a squad. He played a significant part, but it's not. That's not quite enough. His reputation is still being made. Most of the other players' reputations are already made, aren't they? Most of the. You look at the team at Wembley, and all their reputations are already made. Harvey Barnes is making his.
Fingers crossed he can make an impact on Wednesday. I mean, the rest of the team, John, picks itself. Nick Pope, Kieran Trippier, Cher, Byrne, Livermore, as we've said. The midfield three of Tonali, Bruno, Joe Linton, Murphy on the right, Barnes on the left, and Mr. Alexander Isak up top. What do we say? I mean, it does pick itself, and what we've got to
Well,
hope
I
for.
mean, who do you drop after Wembley? I mean,
Yeah, no,
you
exactly.
can't drop,
Exactly.
you can't drop anybody. I mean, the only way there could be a change is the famous Newcastle United way, where there's a knock or an injury or somebody's got a cold and we know nothing about it, and we won't find out anything about it until 6:30 on Wednesday night when the team sheet starts finding its way through into the press box and into the public domain. Uh, unless there's that, or unless somebody's looked so shattered in training after all the celebrations that they can't put one leg in front of another, and Eddie thinks it's better, therefore, to have the guy on the bench and just bring him on for 20 minutes. Unless there's anything like that, this is the easiest team selection possible, isn't it? After the performance and the result at Wembley, we will still be without three of our top players in Botman and Gordon and Hall, but we without three of our top players at Wembley. And look at the performance we put in. So it this is the easiest team selection ever, as long as there's nothing behind the scenes we don't know about, and as long as everybody gets a tick on the physical side of themselves, and that will be the Mad Dog and Graham Jones and Eddie will be watching each individual in training up to Wednesday very, very closely to see any signs of fatigue, mentally or otherwise, etc., etc. there's going to be a little bit, but adrenaline will take care of that on Wednesday night, unless there's a big drop off. And if there is, that could produce a surprise team change. But I'm expecting the full team. They play at Wembley. I mean, how is I go back to the very simple question: how could you drop anybody after Wembley?
Yeah, they're heroes, and as you say, unless there's an unknown injury, because we are recording this on Monday morning ahead of it being released on Tuesday morning. So Eddie Howe will not have held his press conference by the time this goes live, and of course, we may or may not find out anything from Eddie Howe. I know John's feelings on that. He's having a little bit of a smirk there to himself for those listening on the audio channel. John, before I get your score prediction, I want you to deliver another team talk, right? And I can
Good.
see you said
Yeah,
not another one, but I think the way Newcastle United set the tone against Brentford is really important for the final run in. And with what's at stake, I think the message that comes from that dressing room before the run out is gonna dictate what comes. And where Newcastle United end up finishing, they've got to set the tone. Eddie Howe with the message has got to get it right. And I've no doubt he will. But if it was you delivering that team talk before they run out, what would you be saying to them?
Well, I'd be saying first, I would point to Bruno and say, Bruno, you told this set of boys at Wembley in the dressing room, we walk out there as footballers, but let us come back as heroes. And that was exactly right. And that's exactly what happened to you. Each and every one of you associated with this football club and this team are now heroes. I've got one question for you. Do you want to be one of us? Do you want to just be remembered as the team that ended 70 years but then was never particularly seen or heard of again? Or do you want to use this as a launch pad whereby you go beyond being heroes and you become legends? Because legends are people who do it regularly, heroes are people who do it once. You can now become legends. And the way to do that is to get into the Champions League in these last 10 games and then push on next season and win things again. This season isn't over. There's a huge chunk of it left. Go from being heroes to legends. And if you're going to do that, it starts right here and now tonight.
There we go. That ring in the background was Eddie Howe. You'd only had to hear half of your team talk, John. He was like, get him on the phone. Beautiful. Couldn't have said it better myself. How is it going to go then on Wednesday?
Well, uh, for a start, Isaac needs one goal to have 20 Premier League back-to-back seasons, which has never been done by a Newcastle United player. Not even the greatest of them all, Alan Shearer, got back-to-back 20 Premier League goals, back-to-back seasons. He needs one more to do that. He's got 10 games to get that one in, but I've got a feeling he'll do that on Wednesday night. I'm looking for a reaction to this wonderful fortnight we've had. I'm looking for the dripping emotion one more time to come like trickle pouring over all our heads at St James's Park on Wednesday. The, this is the black and white heroes coming out for the first time in the strip at St James's Park since winning at Wembley. The crowd will be so up for it, it'll be untrue. The adulation will come back. Tired limbs, I think adrenaline will kick in and take them through that hour and a half. It's a special occasion for me because John Tudor, remember John, who played in the last Wembley final against Liverpool, 74, as Supermax sidekick, died recently, bless him. His wife Anne and son Jonathan have flown over from America, and together with Shelley, the daughter, are guests of honour at this game. They will be sitting on high back at Newcastle watching the game, and they want what we want. They want a day of emotion and a black and white day. And it's lovely that they're here, and my thoughts are with them. I'm seeing them after the game. But let's get first things done first, and that is winning this game. I know how good Brentford are on the road. I know they're fresh. I know everything about it. But hey, we have ruled the last fortnight. It's unthinkable that we come home and prick the balloon in front of 50,000. That is unthinkable. I can't even begin to contemplate that happening. So I'm not. We're going to win.
There we go. We're going to win on Wednesday, ladies and gents. You heard it here first from John Gibson. Thank you to John for providing the match preview. Thank you to you guys watching and listening. Make sure you hit thumbs up. Get into the comments as well. I get back to each and every one of you. If you're on the audio platform, please leave us a rating and a review. Go back as well and watch the footage from our live event. You've seen part one, no doubt, with John, and there was part two with James Perch and Ryan Taylor, which has gone down particularly well. Thank you as always for tuning in and your support. It is much appreciated. And for myself and John, we will see you guys later in the week.